Hi, this weekend I watched Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese's acclaimed new film about a series of murders that took place in Oklahoma in the 1920s, targeting the Osage Native American community, which was part of a wide conspiracy to uh, inherit and steal the rights to the oil rich land that many of the white people in the area were very angry about non whites possessing. The film's been controversial not for its content, which people have generally found very agreeable, but its format, it's 3.5 hours long and was given a wide release without an intermission. And this is the big problem that I have with the movie. It's big, it's far too big. It's 3.5 hours long, it cost $200 million. And it seems to be a symptom of Apple just throwing money at people to get them to produce prestige product for their service. See also Ridley Scott's film of Napoleon. Um, I have similar reservations about this, not so much that it's historically inaccurate, although there is clearly a lot of dramatic license involved, but that the scale of the film is such that the drama gets lost. It's too long, it's too flabby, it needs to be condensed down. Um, the story mainly follows Ernest Burkhart, the nephew of the ringleader of the conspiracy, a man who's cultivated a very amenable image to himself with the Osage, played by Robert De Niro. And he marries a woman who's set to inherit a large tract of land, whilst one by one her mother and her sisters are killed off, staged as suicides or wasting diseases or simply just shot in the head. It's an awful, tragic story, but the treatment of the film is difficult. There's little um, dramatic momentum. It's revealed very casually that Burkhart and his uncle, William Hale, are deeply involved in the conspiracy, um, when really the focus ought to be on the Osage themselves. Burkhart's wife, played by Lily Gladstone, is very much a passive character during the film and for most of the second half is bedridden as she's being slowly poisoned with an addition to the insulin she requires for her diabetes. And the film eventually climaxes in a court case with Hale and Burkhart brought to trial, and Burkhart vacillating over whether or not he'll testify. There are numerous supporting roles. Jesse Plemons turns up in the second half of the movie as an investigator for the nascent FBI. There are brief cameos in the court scenes by John Lithgow and Brendan Fraser as the opposing counsels. But the film is too big. There's a lack of focus and a lack of tightness over what it should be. Scorsese has just had too much money thrown at him, and the lack of discipline, the lack of restraint, and the lack of constriction on what he can do has meant that the project has just galloped out of his control. Um, we have an epilogue in which it's explained what happened to the various major figures in the story, but it's positioned as a radio show in the 1950s. So we have completely new locations, completely new cast, a very lavish production that I recall someone suggested came straight out of a Wes Anderson film. We don't need that. This is surplus to the story. You convey the information tightly, succinctly. Um, the last face and voice we experience in the movie is that of Scorsese himself, delivering the obituary to Gladstone's character. Um, but it feels like he's putting himself in the middle of the movie and not the Osage themselves. It's their story, and he seems very keen on saying that, but he can't help foregrounding the white characters, telling the story from their point of view, when it's really not their story to tell. Um, Not that I want to accuse him of anything other than lack of discipline. Um, I feel that Scorsese Scorsese gets far too much of an easy ride. I'm not that impressed by many of his films, in all honesty. He has made some great work. The King of Comedy, After Hours, The Last Temptation of Christ are my favourites of his work, and I've seen the vast majority of the others, and many of them don't impress me. Um, this has continued that pattern. It's entirely competent, usually, But the scale of the project and the vast budget and the vast unlimited support he has from Apple to do whatever he wants with as much of their money as he can stuff into the budget means that the film is ultimately completely undisciplined. It has exactly the same problem that The Irishman did when that was made for Netflix. It was 3.5 hours long. It was too long, and it wound up looking ridiculous. This has the same problem. He needs to start making small movies again. Um, it's an important story and one worth telling, absolutely, but it's been told in a strange, unrestrained way by a director who, by this point in his career, really should know better.